Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Today is going to be on a movie that a review on a new film that I. It's a funny thing because, and I'll get into it. But like I was really excited to see it, but then I lost a lot of interest in seeing it over a period of time. It's been out for a while, and uh, you know, and I've talked about this whole kind of feeling that I've had around comic book movies. Today's show is going to be a review on Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, the final installment. And it was written and directed by, of course, kind of the legendary James Gunn. He's a legendary, I think, director, and I think he's one of the best guys around. Um, he's directed some incredible movies, Slither being probably his best film. Super, just amazing. The Suicide Squad film that came out a couple of years ago that no one saw, such a great film. And Guardians itself, the original, is just so damn good. I bought that on Blu-ray last year. Did a big review. I've talked a lot about my fatigue around superhero movies. You know, I'm a huge nerd and a huge fan of Marvel comic books. I used to buy comic books all the time as a kid. I still have a pretty big collection. Occasionally, I'll still buy them. But I've always been a huge fan of those for so long. And but there was a cutoff point for me where things kind of changed. The last Spider-Man movie, No Way Home, which came out in 2021, I just think is an amazing film. There are also the two animated films, Spider-Man Across the Universe. I haven't seen the second one, but the first one again, amazing. But I really feel Spider-Man No Way Home is like the ultimate love letter to all things Spider-Man. But since then, there hasn't been a Marvel movie that I've thought hasn't been really any good. And what did it for me was I remember going to see uh, the last Ant Man film. I do like the Ant Man films quite a bit. I think they're pretty good. I have the first one on Blu-ray, and it's a fun movie, uh, and I like the second one. It was okay, Ant Man versus Wasp Man, or Ant Man and Wasp Man. I thought it was a pretty decent movie, pretty entertaining for what it is. But I had gone to see and it came out this year, and that is Ant Man Quantumania, and I was so disappointed with that movie to the point of where I was just like, I actually went to the theater and we saw it in the theater, and I fell asleep, and I was just like, and I was like, this movie is such a mess, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. And then during that time, we just got so inundated with all of these movies, and it's just it feels like every other week there's a new movie coming out, another superhero movie, and I just lost any desire. Just a total fatigue set in had slowly settled in, and I just needed a break. And so I was really excited to see the last or the third Guardians movie, but I just lost interest because I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm just tired. I'm just like tapped out. So I didn't see it in the theater. A few years ago, if it had come out, I would have been there opening night. And so I, I rented it last night, and I have to say that there's moments around in this film that are very, very good. So I had, a lot of interest to see it initially, the final installment to Guardians. But then again, like I said, I lost over a couple of weeks. I lost all kinds of interest, and I have not seen any Marvel movies at all in the theater in a long time. One movie that I thought was pretty good, was Shang-Chi. I thought that was a pretty solid movie. I thought that that movie lost quite a bit of momentum, though, after the first half of that film. Although it's a very good film in a lot of ways, it just it just felt like it didn't have everything after the kind of the opening sequence of that movie just wasn't as thrilling. But anyway, I have to say, the thing about Guardians that's so great, and why I love the other movies is, well, more so the first one. I love the first one to death. Second one I think is good, but I've only seen it once. I don't think that film is as good as the first one. I think it probably just the writing isn't quite as good. It's not as smart, but it's good. It's pretty good. I've only seen it once. I will see it again. But the thing that is so great about the Guardians, or the Guardians, the first film, or that makes that film so good, is like you have such a great ensemble cast. You have really great writing. There's so much good humor and comedy. Great action. It's got some great drama, some melodrama even. Um, the the visual effects are just seamless, like the perfect combination of, or perfect example of CGI and practical effects. It's just a gorgeous film, and the music, of course, is just amazing. Like that is a character in that film, and in the films in general. But I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I heard mostly good things about this film, but across the board, people were pretty critical of it. And I have to say that one of the things about this film is that the humor, I feel like the humor is right out of the gate is dead. Is like kind of like dead air. And I which to me is like one of the most important parts, one of the greatest parts of the first movie and the second one, especially the first one, is the humor. And I feel like there's all of this. It feels like the comedy aspect of this film is feels really forced, and it's really it's just not funny. It's just not really funny, and there's like these awkward moments of when these situations present themselves, and it's just not very funny, and it's like dead, the kind of dead air. So it throws you off. At least it throws me off quite a bit because of when you think of the previous films, especially the first one, where it's like it's really high quality and it's like generally funny, and you're behind it and you're into it. The film is mostly centered on one of the main characters, Rocket Raccoon, of Guardians, and that part of the film is really really good. This movie does have a really heavy emotional quality. It gets into his origin story, and it's pretty brutal. It's pretty dark. Um, it's very sad, and there are aspects of this film where it's very dark and it's very sad, and it's generally this movie's pretty conclusive. I think overall they do leave it to where there probably could be another one, but it does have a certain emotional tug of where it is very emotional, and it's a touching film. But the departments in the areas I feel like this film isn't really that good. The areas where I think it kind of fails is the comedy aspect, and there's so much there's so much comedy in these films, and it feels like it just does not the comedy aspect does not connect at all in this film. In my honest opinion, the other thing is that there is such an abundance of all of these characters in this film. There's so many characters that it is hard to keep track. There were moments in this film where there was so much stuff going on and so many characters and so many environments and so much information you're getting at once that I honestly didn't understand what was going on. There was like two or three times in this film where I was kind of overwhelmed, but I had no idea what was actually happening in that given moment, and I couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on. The other thing that was really mixed for me. The other thing that was really mixed with for me was the lead villain in this film, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and that is the High Evolutionary, and he, and in some ways he is pretty sadistic. He's very sadistic, es- especially around. 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 especially a the origin story of Rocket Raccoon. He's a very sadistic bastard in the film, but as a whole, he's not really. I just I get really confused by what he is or who he is, what his motivation is, and I flat out I just don't think he's that strong of a character. He just doesn't have that imposing will. And in comparison to say someone like Ronan, who I think is just an amazing, who is the villain in the first Guardians. But the main thing around this film for me, and I have to say, some of the set design and these new worlds that we're introduced to, they're okay. I think it's okay. It's all right. But I feel like some of the writing is kind of bad, um, especially around the comedic aspects of the film. I was really surprised by how unfunny this movie is at times. The Rocket, his whole story was pretty emotional and kind of heartbreaking, kind of brutal. And there are other emotional things in the film that are actually very emotional. But other than that, it really lacks so much of the magic of the first one. And I just got really tired. I think this film is feels long. I think this film feels too long. I knew it would be long because it is, supposedly the last one in this trilogy. They're all pretty long anyway, but this one dragged, I felt, significantly. And yeah, I so it's got a lot of this film has a lot of holes in it, and I feel like probably the biggest thing is the inclusion of so many other characters, which is the thing that I feel has really hindered and really brought down a lot of these other Marvel films, is that they try to tackle so much with so many different characters, and after a while they're just these objects on screen, and you know and I have to say, this is overall probably the first James Gunn movie I have been, kind of let down by and disappointed in. And I feel like I mentioned some of the films that he's done in his career, and he's always a huge fan, and now he's kind of trapped in this superhero cage. Like, now he just doesn't make. I mean, he's made four movies now in the comic book world, and it seems like he'll never go back to being just a regular director and direct his own original material. That's not included in this, and that part of it I think is sad, because I think he's tremendously talented. And now that he's like the head of the DCU, and he's going to be just putting out all of these other movies for the next 10 years, it's just like, oh Jesus. But anyway, I say, if you're a fan of this trilogy and the Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, you probably deserve to see it. If not, but I was pretty let down. I was pretty underwhelmed by this film, and again, it's just kind of another sign for me as for why I need a break from all things comic book related. So this is Jason Dean, and we will see you next time. Peace.